Quadratic formula is based on this in standard form. Just like with factoring, to solve by the quadratic formula, you must have it equal to 0, okay? You must have it equal to 0. So if it's not equal to 0, you're going to move. So just like with completing the square, you move the constant over to get rid of it. Now to do quadratic formula, if you have it equal to something, move that over to the other side, all right? You are simply going to use your A, your B, and your C. Your coefficient of your x squared, your coefficient of your x, and your constant, all right? And you are going to use those to solve for x. The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So using the quadratic formula, 3x squared minus 5x equals 2. I have a problem. It is not equal to 0. So I'm going to solve my problem easily, right? Just by moving that 2 over. I have 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 equals 0. I now have my A, my B, and my C. Use your negatives appropriately, okay? Quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Writing too quickly there. My little mouse did not want. All right. So negative b, my b is negative 5. So I have negative 5, which is just 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. This is what my x equals. And then you just do basic order of operations, okay? Yeah, actually, I just wrote an a, so that's actually supposed to be a negative. No, it's supposed to be 2a, so it's supposed to be 3. So there we go. All right, so I have 5 plus or minus. What is negative 5 if I square it? 25. What is negative 4 times 3 times negative 2? 24. It's 24. So it's minus a negative 24, right? So it's plus 24 here, right? Everybody see that? Anytime you have those two negatives there, it's going to be plus. All right, and then all over what? 6. I do need to continue to simplify this, okay? So just simplify it. What is 25 plus 24? Yeah, it's 49, right? All right. What is the square root of 49? 7. So I have 5 plus or minus 7 over 6. Please don't leave your answer like that. If it were still a square root, you could leave it. But those are all numbers. 5 plus 7 over 6 and 5 minus 7 over 6. You need to actually solve it. All right, I say that because I have gotten this as an answer before. All right, so what's 5 plus 7? 12. Divided by 6 is 2. 5 minus 7 divided by 6 is negative 1/3. Those are my two answers. I actually prefer quadratic formula, like hands down is the easiest way to solve it. This is actually factorable. This is a factorable problem. Anytime you have two real numbers that are integers, your number was factorable, okay? Two rational numbers, your number was factorable, okay? But sometimes it's faster for me just to do quadratic formula. This is my preferred method. You will see ones with imaginary numbers and with irrational numbers as well, and you'll get the same thing. So it's fine. You just leave it. Complex solutions. So complex solutions means I'm going to have an imaginary number thrown in here. All right. So I want to move everything to one side. It's typically easier to keep it with the x squared positive if you have this option. So I'm going to move my 6x and my 7 over. So I end up with 2x squared plus 6x plus 7 equals 0. I'm ready to use the quadratic formula now. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. You will notice But I have 36 minus, what is 4 times 2 times 7? Yeah. And so when I do that, I'm going to get negative 6 plus or minus the square root of what? Negative 20. All over 4. And so negative 20 is going to be 4 times 5, so we're going to take out a 2i, right? So we have negative 6 plus or minus 2i squared of 5, all over 4. Now to simplify this, I'm going to tell you it's easiest, and I really would prefer that you split it up, all right? So you split it up to be able to simplify each piece. By that, I mean you want to say negative 6 over 4 plus or minus 2i squared of 5 over 4. Split it up into a standard form of a complex number, the real part plus the imaginary part. It's also the easiest way to see if it will reduce, because in order to reduce all of them when it's together, it has to come out of all of them. But if you split it up, you can reduce them individually. By that, I mean you can reduce the 6 over 4, and then you can reduce the 2 over 4. So 6 over 4 reduces to what? 3 over 4. And the 2 over 4 is going to reduce to 1 over 2. And so this is what your final answer should look like. So it's a new term. The discriminant is the piece that's inside the root. And it kind of tells you something about your answer. If you have a perfect root, you're going to have integers or rational numbers. But if this guy is positive, you're going to have 2 real answers. They're both going to be real numbers because you can take the square root of positive. If it is 0, the square root of 0 is just 0. So you're not going to have 2 answers. You're going to have one answer, because it's the square root of 0. And if it is negative, your answers will be imaginary. Okay, so that discriminant tells you a little bit about what your answer is going to be like. If your discriminant is positive, you're going to have 2 real answers, even if they're rational, irrational, whatever. If it's negative, you're going to have 2 imaginary answers. So you should have an I in your answer if you get a negative as a discriminant. And if it's 0, you're actually only going to have 1 answer, because you won't have, there's not positive and negative square root of 0. It's just 0. And so your discriminant actually gives you a little bit of information about your answers. But I want you to know the term discriminant. That's just the piece of the quadratic formula that is inside your root. All right, homework. All right, determine the type of solution. So this doesn't even want us to answer it. It just wants to say, what kind of solution are you going to have? So I would say, well, negative b, or not negative b, just b squared. We're not going to do the whole thing. So b squared minus 4ac. That is my discriminant. So I'm going to take 6 squared, minus 4 times a times c. So I have 36 minus, what's 4 times 8? 4 times 1 times 8?
33.
Gives me
4.
it's a positive number. So I'm going to have 2 real solutions. That's all it's telling me there. All right, that's all it's telling me.
So if it's a negative, is it like one real solution?
No, if it's negative, it's 2 imaginary solutions. If it's 0, it is 1 real solution. So go ahead and try A and B.